I just finished an 8-mile run, and just wanted to document for a second, a few minutes, I guess, because it's kind of a continuation of the last vlog I did. So basically, like I said, this is part of my fitness goal of getting to 10% body fat. Last I checked, that was 16%. I mean, I could be 15, could be 17, I don't know, but probably less likely it's 17 right now. But why I'm documenting this is because, well, obviously I'm not in the nutritionist space on YouTube, but I figured I would give some insight as to what's going on with me, like, my own with my own personal experience. So a lot of people are talking about the sugar diet, and I can see that it works for people. It probably I would guess it would work for me to get to my goal. The only thing though is that's just not what I've chosen to do. I've given large appreciation to the ketosis way of handling things because it helps with everything that I'm doing. So what I mean by that is during the day I have to do engineering for 8 to 10 hours or whatever, and I feel like I'm not as efficient as I used to be with glucose, but it's definitely like a cleaner energy. Like I feel that whenever I do something, I'm more certain about it, so you combine that with like omega-3 fats and just other kinds of fats. I'm definitely preferring ketosis over glucose energy expenditures, whether mental or physical. Actually, that also is also the case for physical too, not just mental. The physical, in the physical case, because I like to run and I like to do more aerobic things, I find that, even though you do get into a ketotic state, even when if you're primarily glycogen, in a glycogen state initially, when you're moving, but when you primarily have ketones and that's what you're going off of without glucose, the physical aspect, it just feels like a cleaner energy. Like when you're going through a run, I less so for like actual resistance training, but more for aerobic, I would say, it just feels like you can keep going without stopping. That's the thing about ketones versus glucose. Now it may sound like bullshit because I do take creatine and beta alanine supplements, so maybe that could be what's really driving it, but I think a lot of it is the fats that's being used. But anyway, I keep talking about this stuff, but the reason why I'm talking about it now is because I could tell that I'm actually going towards my goal of 10% body fat, even without the sugar diet approach. And it's interesting because a lot of people, like I said, they talk about 20% being maximum reduction, to get down to 20%. You can't go below that on the ketosis diet because of too much protein and fat and stuff like that. But I'm finding that is true, but I'm also finding that and how I know I'm getting down to lower than 16% is because, I feel like my body's more tight too. I could see my abs a little bit better, and just vascularity's better. I don't want to show my body right now because it seems a little obnoxious. Although you could probably find that on other sources like Instagram. I got some weird accounts. I just like to post myself sometimes, but I like to take pictures just to because they say that you want to document it towards your your so-called weight loss journey. But as I was saying about the 10%, getting down to there, pretty much like almost shredded, but not quite what people define as shredded. The 10% body fat, in terms of ketones, ketosis and ketones, I think the issue is the protein, because I find that I'm not really protein adapted. Because I'm fat adapted, but I think I don't know if there's such a thing as protein adapted, because, for example, I've came up with a theory that if you have fiber and proteins together, and there's some other forms, but if you have fiber and proteins together, I believe that the glucose response of the protein can be dampened out to a certain extent. So I find that whenever I have protein, and this is the issue when I was doing the renovations, throughout the day the ketones are just low. During the renovations I didn't have my ketone reader, so I didn't have time to check my ketones. I just had time to use whatever protein I had towards the renovations. So I was basically, I even told myself, I said I'm going full carnivore because I needed the protein. I could have used sugar, I guess, to essentially power myself through those tough times. I mean, it was harder than what I do now. I mean, on a given day. I mean, I'm not an oil rig guy, So fortunately that's the case. So I don't have to have a lot of glucose kind of energy. And that kind of goes back to the whole idea that the ketones don't really help me. I find they help me with like aerobic stuff, but when it comes to resistance training, I mean, I could be wrong, but it just feels like it doesn't really help too much. It's like, in a way, it's like when you have ketones, you still have glucose going on. You have some glucose, but it's like the weakest form of glucose. So I don't know, just powering through is just the hardest thing when you're just going off of ketones, meaning you're fasted. So but it does help a run extremely well, not gonna lie. But yeah, so the whole theory is that when you mix, for me at least, from my understanding, is that when you mix the proteins and the fiber, which is what you find in leafy greens and stuff like that, which I didn't do because I didn't have time to like cook all the. I mean, didn't even have a kitchen. I had to just get things like outside. So I mean, I would get some salads and stuff, but it's sometimes you go to these places, they're like Panera Bread. It's not the cleanest. They don't use the cleanest ingredients and stuff, and they just kind of give you a bunch of crap. It's just not enough. You really have to find it yourself at a grocery store, at a good, like Whole Foods or whatever, and different kinds of leafy greens. Like, it's both. What I mean by fiber is really I'm mixing fiber with polyphenols. So what I mean by that is if you combine polyphenols, fiber, and protein, you'll basically reduce the glycogen response of protein. But there's another theory, which is that you just have to give yourself enough time to become protein adapted. I think I thought I had that, and perhaps it's true. Like, I think Thomas DeLauer is probably, if there's a guy that I know would represent protein adaptation, it would be Thomas DeLauer. I've never heard of the idea of protein adapted. I've heard of fat adapted, but the whole idea of protein adapted is, I don't know, it may not be a thing, it may not even exist, but if that doesn't cover it, then at least the fiber will. The fiber makes more sense, because when you're talking about that kind of thing, it's like it kind of reduces in general, fiber reduces your glucose response, you know what I mean? So I'm just gonna get in the car here because I probably look crazy talking to the screen. But as I was saying, what was I gonna say? So yeah, so I've been doing that for about I haven't been doing that like super consistently, but this is my new approach, and I've been doing it probably like the last 4 days, and I keep checking my ketones. They're not the best, like me actually fasting. This is basically kind of like a protein modified sparing fast, but with fiber and polyphenols. And because I mean, I think that there's a lot of a lot of people can do well on that PMSF diet, but I think that in particular for me, whenever I tried it, basically being carnivore in a strict way, I guess. I don't know. I guess some people would disagree with that. I don't really know what the difference between being carnivore, basically carnivore on a sparring, other than calories, because you have to keep your calories like under 800. But even when I remember I was trying that PMFS diet for about 3 or 4 days, and I was checking my ketones, and they were just super low. And so like I said, I know I'm jumping around, but I believe that the reason for that is because you either have to be protein adapted, which I don't know if it's a thing, or you have to combine fiber and polyphenols with your protein meals. And I can attest to the fact that that's probably the case. The latter is probably the case, because when I did go carnivore, or whatever you want to call it, and it was pretty low calorie. I mean, I was going to say 1,100 calories a day. I was still gaining fat, and I was looking fatter and flabby and stuff. I mean, if you just go back to my other videos, you'll see that that was the case. So, like, you know, basically, now I'm trying, I wouldn't say trying, but I'm implementing a new process, but it's just more expensive and it takes more time to cook and stuff like that. And now that I actually don't have to do any of these other stuff, like, I feel like I can actually have time to do it. So I've always kind of had in the back of my mind, like, something didn't seem right, like with just taking the protein and not having leafy greens with it. But now that I'm having the leafy greens and, you know, and all the cruciferous vegetables and stuff like that with the protein meal, and by the way, it's still under 800 calories, so I'm still doing that PMFS approach. I'm finding that my ketone levels are kept at a high. They're basically anywhere from like 0.9 to up to probably like 3.1. I want to say 2.4. So far, I've tested between those when I'm doing the meals with that every day. So as long as I have leafy greens and some fiber from that, then I'm good. But I think it also has to be polyphenols as well, because, you know, I've tested this with protein shakes and putting some hemp seeds in, hemp powder, and I went down to 0.3 ketone level. And that's not ketosis. So I do believe that this is kind of like a culmination of what everybody's talking about. The gym bros combined with the MD scientists, like, you know, Stephen Gundry and stuff, and Pradeep Gymnatus and stuff like that. So the only thing though is I'm leaving out the sugar diet people, which I believe it probably does work. The only thing though is, like I said, I mean, there's still a lot to really like look into. I know I might sound like a dad bod, you know, dude, to say the least, saying this, but I think I mean, I give credence to a lot of that stuff. I mean, it just makes sense, you know, because I've done several things throughout my life, and I forgot that I did these other things. Like, I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I didn't know what was going on. Like, when I was a teenager, I'm looking back, and it's like, you know, like, you're picky for a reason, you know. Why would you be picky for no reason, you know? And I was always known for being like a picky eater, or just picky in general, spoiled brat and shit. And so it's just like, I mean, you're picky for a reason, right? And you may not be able to explain it, but something went on in your head and you just forgot, probably. So, you know, so for example, like I never said, I don't think I ever said this on YouTube, but there was a time when I was about 13 where I was like, you know what? Diet Cokes are really good. I just want to have just Diet Cokes and see where I can get to. And basically I would have very low calorie. I think my mom would make like a small meal, and then I would have that, and then just drink 10 Diet Cokes every day. Did that for about 1 to 3 months. I don't remember if it was 1 month or 3 months or whatever. And then I started feeling like, after a while, I was like, wait, why is this Diet Coke? Not only is it not giving me energy, and not only do I feel a crash, but this Diet Coke is making me feel like I'm gonna pass out. Like, and then I just started having more to eat, and I started gaining weight beyond that, maybe a little bit of weight. But then I kind of just adapted to a different kind of system, because I just kind of dropped that whole Diet Coke thing. Because, you know, now we kind of know what the science is. Like, the aspartame kind of, if you have too much Diet Coke, the aspartame can like damage all your gut microbiome and make you in a bad mood all the time or whatever. So the aspartame is bad. I don't agree with it. I don't have Diet Coke today, although Sorry, my eyes are like itchy from the sweat. Shit, because it's so salty and stuff. I can't shake this off. Anyway, so yeah, that's my new approach, and so far, the ketones are good, but the scale is kind of like all over the place. After coming off of my last fast, because for the most part, before doing this protein fast, I was doing a, if you want to call it a fast, but I was, because it's under 800 calories a day, I was doing an actual fast where, well, I should call it a ketogenic modified fast, because you might as well just call it a fast, because what I was doing was basically, what I would do is, for about 3 days straight, I didn't actually like full on fast. What I would do is I would make myself a fat filled coffee, like a bulletproof coffee, have about 2 or 3 of those a day, and throughout the day I would give myself like spoonfuls of not olive oil, because it just didn't seem like the nutrient dense fat that I was looking for. There's something about olive oil, but I would give myself basically like tablespoons of ghee and palm oil, probably like once every 2 hours, 3 hours, and I just like take it. And it sounds crazy, but and then sometimes I would put MCT oil in that. Speaking of, and actually that works for me. I dropped the weight like crazy. I mean, doing that, obviously, the water retention got down to 0, and I would be doing this like about 3 days a week for like the last three weeks, and it sounds crazy, but then I noticed that my weight dropped down to a minimum of 158. So whenever I broke my so-called fast, broke my fast, it would always be with like pretty clean stuff, like protein. Sometimes I would compromise and just get like some sushi or something, especially because I had like a Monterey trip. I had like 4 meals. That was probably the biggest break from a fast that I ever had, that I had in like 2 months. So when I had that and stuff like that, my weight only went up to about 163 pounds. And so like, okay, so that was the maximum, right? But like, I'm talking about like later on, I ended up going to a minimum of about 158 pounds. And like I said, I tested at, when I tested my body fat percentage, they measured me at 160.4 pounds, and with all the muscle mass and all that. So who knows, probably my body fat percentage minimum might have been 15.5% or something, or maybe 15 or 14, I don't know. But there's a lot of fluctuation that goes along with that. But at the end of the day, with doing that fast, that was after that I had that Monterey meal, those 4 meals at Monterey. I was doing like the 3-day a week thing, where I was basically just having ghee and red palm oil throughout the day. And I was so strict. And then I would also have some bone broth as well. And not even yogurt. I was just like, no, not even kefir. For a while I was trying to do kefir, and I was telling people like Mark's Epic Weight Loss that I was doing it. This was like 3 months ago, but then I decided, I was like, dude, don't even do that. Just try to do this, and you'd be surprised. I mean, okay, I was super low energy, and it still felt like a full-on fast in a way, but I still felt like I could really power through because of those coffees. It was basically layered lattes, the layered creamer. So I was having that, and okay, I'll admit it has like 3 grams of sugar, but it doesn't do anything to my ketone levels. And I tested, obviously. And so then I put like 1 tablespoon, a little bit more than 1 tablespoon of red palm oil, a little bit more of 1 tablespoon of ghee, no coconut oil actually, but even though that's what he does, he layered himself when he makes these lattes. And then I would put either unsweetened pistachio milk, which has 4 ingredients, the 3 Trees brand, or there's also the Califia brand, which is what I used, which is the almond milk, has only 4 ingredients, sea salt, some vanilla, and something, I don't remember, vanilla extract. And so I would basically froth that up, like, so again, this is not really a fast in the strict way that everybody says. So I would have that for every single latte, and I would have 2 or 3 of those a day, and I would have to do that plus some fats for about 3 days. And straight, and I would just drop the weight. So I got down to 158. But now, see, what I realized by doing that, see, I'm elaborating on everything that's happened, because it's like I have to explain myself. I'm basically doing no protein almost, except for what you find in those you know, in that milk, the almond milk and the unsweetened almond milk and the whatever. And also, from on occasion when I broke my fast, I would have chia seeds mixed with the pistachio or the almond milk, and now, you know, basically I would make a pudding out of that. You know, it would harden based off of putting it in the fridge. So I would have that when I broke my fast, on my days that I'm breaking my fast. Not during the times I'm trying to do the so-called fat fast, but which provides a lot of fiber and stuff like that. But what I noticed throughout doing this is that, like, I just felt like I barely could do anything. And like, I was like, well, this is a little bit better than, you know, those fat fasts, or the regular fast where you don't do anything except for black coffee and water. But I noticed that it was so bad that I was like, dude, I got to do something where it's like, if only I could just get a little bit more protein, because I also want to work out a little bit more. So work out and feel a little bit better, so I could do more things and not feel so crappy. So I mean, I already knew about this protein fast, but I also had this goal of getting down to 10%, like I said, and I'm at probably at the 15.5%, maybe, or so. But so that goes back to the whole idea. I weighed myself today after a consistent diet of doing this protein, and I'm about 161.5 pounds. So even though, yeah, I'm higher than the 158, at least I'm not at I didn't get out of control to 171 or 172 like I was during the renovations, you know. And then I even sometimes I was like, wait, 174, 173? How's this going? What's going on here? Why is all this protein stuff not working? So, you know, and then now I'm looking at this stuff like, oh, just go to sugar fasting, you know. And I don't know, it's just, I feel like this is working. They're making a point where I end up doing that, but I mean, it just sounds so destructive. I mean, I know that it could probably work, but so far this seems to be working, and I think I'm gonna stick to this. So yeah, wish me luck. I hope I don't die over doing this, but yeah, I'm basically, well, I shouldn't say I don't die. I mean, let me be 100% honest. I mean, doing this approach is like being disciplined about weight loss, to the extent of the goal. So what I mean by that is, yeah, I mean, sure, if I was 30% body fat and I was trying to get to 20% body fat, the discipline for that would be way less strict, and you know, yeah, I that was happening, you know, it was a lot less strict, and you know, so, you know, like I would cheat like once a week or something and stuff like that. But you know, it's interesting because getting down to this percentage, I'm able to cheat a little bit. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, when there's times where I'm going to see my dad, or if I'm seeing my girlfriend, she lives in the Bay Area, or if I'm just doing something else, sometimes I'll have a little bit of half and half, which I don't do anymore, or I'll have, you know, a lot of drinks with half and half. Sometimes I'll take bites of things that are completely not good for me, and sometimes I just, you know, or something that I'm not trying to do on this fast, you know, or on this diet that I've chosen to do, that I've customized for myself, I guess you could say. So there's a lot of things, like I'm kind of cheating. Like there was sometimes, like when I went to Monterey, which was about 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, I don't remember now, but like I said, I just wanted to just decompress, and like I told you, I got up to 162. It was about 3 weeks ago, about 163 pounds. And what we did was basically I cheated to the point where I had the 4 meals, and so one of them was bunch of sushi. The other one was steak. Well, I mean, 2 of the meals had steak in it, and the other one had like an omelet. But there was some rice, you know. And I even had quite a bit of sugar, and there was also a few times where when I was in the Bay Area, my brother and I went to go get some hold on a second. where my brother and I went to go get some dark chocolate, and I realized I had 40 grams of sugar by mistake. So, and then during that, also that time when I went to Monterey, like, I'm sorry, jumping around, but I also had, I had a big glass of wine. Can you believe that? A big glass of wine. And I never drink anymore. So, and then there was another time I was with my sister, we went out and we had some alcohol. And so like I said, like, I'm cheating. Well, so when I went out with with my sister, that was about a month ago. So, I mean, I was still trying to do this diet, this whole fasting thing. But, you know, not where I'm eating nothing, you know, obviously you have to look at food differently, to understand, you know, but the idea is there are times where I am cheating, but I'm not like cheating once a week or doing these ridiculous, oh, well, you know, these fad things where it's like, oh, I'm going to give myself a week and then I can eat whatever I want. I'm not doing that. I'm cheating in a way that makes sense in that moment. So like with my brother, it's like, okay, well, I want to enjoy this stuff with him, you know. The only thing I won't cheat with is a bunch of carbs, like 300 grams of carbs or whatever. I will never go that far with eating junk, you know. You'll never see me even on a cheat day doing that stuff. Like, that's just insane, you know. Although I've thought about it because I really love deep dish pizza. I can't wait to have deep dish pizza again. It's been on my mind for quite a bit, and I used to love eating it. I would go to Chicago Fire in Sacramento. God, it's just the best thing in the world. Deep dish pizza is so good. Maybe one of these days I'll cheat with it and then try to reverse it within a week or something, if that's even possible. I don't even know. But anyway, in fact, it might actually be complementary to a workout if I'm you know, trying to do some resistance training for a whole day, like the next day or something. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that I mean, what I'm doing is actually working. Like, I don't feel like I'm gonna die or anything. I just, like I was telling you, I feel like I had low energy. And yeah, I know the scale doesn't really mean anything. It's showing 161.5, but like that's a pretty low value for being fed. I mean, with more calories than like what I was doing with the fat, you know. And I'm still having dark chocolate. Like, I'm still eating what makes sense to me. So like another thing I'm doing right now is when my ketones get so low to the point where it's below 0.5, I'll just have a tablespoon of MCT oil and a little bit of fat. Maybe sometimes I'll have some brie with it, you know, just so that I can try to get fat adapted as fast as possible. Because whatever I did during that moment when I saw those ketones, it was a bad, something that I wasn't supposed to do. So I just look at it as I'm trying to get back to my normal schedule of ketones. So yeah, I love ketosis. I mean, that's the state to be in. I mean, it's the ultimate like Greek thing to do, you know, Mediterranean thing to do is to be in ketosis, and you can read insane amounts of books and become as intellectual as possible and stuff like that. I love ketones. It's my favorite thing. If I can be in ketosis, I would do it for my whole life, you know. But yeah, I mean, one of the greatest. Actually, I gotta close my trunk so it doesn't. Hold on, sorry. Just wanted to talk a little bit about this because, yeah, there's just so much to talk about. Hold on. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because I know I keep talking about different things. So when it's funny because like when oh shoot, okay, it's funny. The last weekend was the first time I went to a burrito place, a Mexican place that we go to called La Piñata. And that was the very first time I went into that restaurant and didn't have one chip. Didn't even have one chip. Because I'm trying to stay strict with this ketosis stuff, right? No carbs at all for me. Absolutely nothing. I'm not trying to have any carbs at all. So, Now, obviously, like I was telling you, I'll give in a little bit, but once you have one chip, you'll have 3 bags of them at that place. They have the best chips in the world. Like La Piñata is the best. I also didn't have a meal there. I just let them eat, and then what I did was I had some shrimp from my girlfriend's dish, and afterwards I went to have a poke bowl, which has the consistency of what I'm doing, combining the salad, the fiber, with the proteins to delay the glycemic effect and not affect ketones. So that actually did work because my ketone levels were, I think, when I tested, it was like 1.8 or something, like a few hours after I ate. So this approach has been working so far. I know it's only been about 4 or 5 days of doing it. This protein sparring fast, along with polyphenols and fiber. You have to, in my opinion, like for me at least, I have to have all 3 of those, or else the weight loss will not happen. It's just going to be, I'm just going to have the glycogen high because of the protein, and no ketosis, hardly any ketosis at all. So yeah, like I said, I don't really know if there's such a thing as protein adaptation. I like to believe there is, because that'd be great if you can live off of that your whole life. But it sounds like there's not, because a lot of people like to talk about like carnivores having dad bods and stuff. And in general, it's kind of true, but I feel like I still have that physique too. I mean, like even if I get down to 10% body fat, because like my love handles will never go away, I feel like. And that's not a bad thing, because it's about quantity and the goals that you have and stuff like that, because you know, not everybody's body's going to be the same. You know, it's like, if you get to 10%, you're basically like a Greek god almost. I mean, if you get below that, you're considered shredded. And if you're considered shredded and you still have those love handles, well, then God didn't give you a good hand. That's how I look at it. But yeah, I mean, it's been fun. You know, I'm enjoying this journey, and I think 10% is where you want to be. I mean, because like I think it gives you the most amount of longevity. It gives you the most amount of performance with workouts and everything like that. Or if you're trying to play a sport, whatever the case might be, it probably gives you the most mental clarity too. And it just makes your life much better. I mean, just that feeling of, you know, just you probably look the best too. I mean, you know, it's like you can't go wrong with it. You're gonna experience the best out of life, you know. And I'm not chasing after like worthless things necessarily, or just, you know, I don't know what you want to call it, but like, you know, because like, does it look like I'm one to really, well, I guess it's not necessarily look like one, but I don't really care about having flashy things or anything like that. I care that it's like functional and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And like I've heard of people that are in the space, like Dr. Ekberg, he said he's gotten down to 3% body fat, and I said, I don't think I want to do that. That sounds crazy, you know? And a lot of people just, especially myself, they just want to look sexy or whatever. They want to look good without a shirt. They just want to, and they want to be able to feel good about, you know, while they're going about their life and having the most mental clarity, and just like everything else, you know, that I've stated before. And I think that if you want to quantify it, I think it is 10%, honestly. Now, if you were like skin and bones, I could see it being more like 15 or 20%, like if you don't have much muscle. And but even then, you would want to have muscle to have more mental clarity. I mean, I think you would. I'm fortunate that I'm able to build muscle pretty good. So basically my whole life I was on a bulk and I wasn't aware of it, but that's because of all the influences I've had. And that's why I got so fat. I mean, if somebody there was only one person in my life that actually taught me the mechanics of cutting, which is Miguel. And so he's the one that told me about ketosis, and I'm like, oh, this is how that works. And also we had this other person called the Freak, and he never explained anything about science, but he followed the so-called Atkins diet. And I guess he was trying to suggest that we can do cutting based off of eating blue cheese and eating the Atkins bars and the shakes, but that was oversimplified. He was trying to talk about low carb, high fat. That's what Atkins was talking about. And people just got it twisted because of marketing and stuff like that. He discussed ketosis as well. So I find it interesting. I know I just keep talking about all this shit, but it's been on my mind, and honestly, this has been one of the hardest goals I've tried to achieve, other than Berkeley and getting the PE, because you know, for me, I have to work all those hours, but so I only have, I don't know, 2-3 hours to do, you know, working out every day, which is not that bad. I mean, if you look at Ronnie Coleman's schedule, it was about the same. I mean, you know, he had to work during the day too, so, you know, there's no excuse. But he was having about 6 to 8 meals a day. I mean, I saw his video when he was in 2006, when he was doing that in his Olympia thing. That's crazy stuff. I mean, you have to be taking steroids too, I guess, if you were trying to get to that point. And that's the thing, is everybody likes to harp on insulin being an issue. And in general it is, but it's actually good for bodybuilding. So ketones are kind of trivial by the time you get to that point, because you're basically capitalizing on glucose spikes, you know. And you can't do that unless, in my opinion, unless you're on steroids. But I could be wrong. You know, maybe I just never was able to do it right. Because there was a time in my life where I was trying to do that. I was having top ramen every day. That was my diet. Top ramen and tuna mixed together because of Cali Muscle. And guess what happened? I just ended up gaining fat. Well, actually, no, you know what? No. I did gain muscle. I ended up getting pretty big biceps out of that. Like, I would say most of what I have today. I think I have 16-inch arms right now. Most of what I have today that's beyond like the norm is because of that period. So, okay, well, he was right about that. But I also got extremely fat at that time, which then messed up with my mental clarity when I had to go to Berkeley. Because during that time, it was just before I went to Berkeley. I don't know what I was doing, because I was basically 21, just kind of like listening to random people that I saw. Like, they were like, go ahead and have this drink. I don't know what I was thinking, because I should have just... I was trying to do my calculations and stuff, but then like there would be times where I'm like, I want to have fun and see like how far I can extend this. But I should have just said, screw that. Don't hang out with these people. They're nothing but trouble, because they ended up becoming druggies, you know, and people that don't have any good jobs or whatever. So that was a really bad idea. I shouldn't have became friends with them. But today, I mean, things are working out extremely well for me. So enough of that. Thanks for listening to what I was saying, and hopefully you could piece it together. I know, you know, the sugar diet people might be listening to my video and saying like, you know, he's kind of an exception, because a lot of those guys have the dad bods and they ain't losing shit. And if you were to ask them to test their ketones, they wouldn't be able to show anything. They're not in ketosis, you know, that kind of thing. Cole Robertson likes to say that they're not in. I would say for the most part, they love to talk about their, you know, the shit that we all know about, and they like to sound smart and stuff. A lot of people, they like to talk about the stuff to sound smart, you know, instead of actually getting through and experiencing it and seeing that it works or whatever. Which is kind of weird, because I look at it primarily as like a practical thing. You know, I don't really care to sound smart about it. In fact, it's the opposite. Like, I'd rather sound stupid about it, because, or like, I'd rather just kind of go be random and not sound so smart about it, because I want to actually I would rather get something out that actually is practical, you know? So hopefully you can piece this all together and come up with something practical for yourself. Let me know what you think about that approach of combining protein, fiber, and polyphenols together. I think that's, if you're stalling on carnivore or something like that, that would be the way to go. I mean, you could also do the sugar diet, like I was saying, and you probably would do well with that too. But again, I think a lot of people are denying the fact that they just keep that weight on, and they think, oh, well, no carbs, so that must mean I'm losing weight. Well, that was a mistake I was making for freaking 4 months, and I ended up just staying at that 173, 22% body fat kind of thing. So yeah, let me know what you think. Have a good day.